So, welcome to another episode. So, today we have Anna Dafna on, who is an ADHD coach. So, welcome to today's episode, Anna.
Hello, Jivan.
So, I've been told, well, I was told at school, in fact, that I had ADHD. For me, it was like I've done my reading about it, and what I perceive as maybe I do, maybe I don't. How do you go about defining if someone does have ADHD?
Um, who told you? A psychiatrist or a teacher?
Yeah, so a letter from school. I was expelled from school not because
Oh,
of being too stupid because I went to private school. It was
mm,
more to do with behaviour. My sort of records and stuff were okay, but yeah, it was more to do with my behaviour and sporadic brain, let's say.
how old were you?
I was maybe 11, 12.
Okay. Well, um, the diagnosis comes from psychiatrist,
I'm not sure
and
exactly. I just got a letter, so
yeah, yeah, and the official diagnosis through a psychiatrist.
I'm not sure. As I said, I was quite young at the time. I've not really questioned it.
The,
I
the
just something that I
formal
remembered.
diagnosis comes from a
Okay,
psychiatrist
okay.
because somebody could have behavior that could mean anything else at school, for example. But yeah, that's a common trait, like to have hyperactivity, not to conform, or to want to, have attention at school, get dopamine from it. It depends, but this is one trait, but the psychiatrist can determine if you fulfill the criteria.
Do you think it's something that's overdiagnosed massively and even self-diagnosed instead of, as you said, going down the sort of formal channels of speaking to a psychiatrist or some type of psychologist of some kind?
I think it's underdiagnosed.
You think
If
it's
you think of
underdiagnosed?
Yes, if you think of
Wow.
the waiting times in the UK, around 7-8 years through NHS,
Okay.
it cannot be overdiagnosed. It's just people are more aware, and we are catching up now with the diagnosis and the you know correct treatment, if you say, or therapy or coaching.
So what would you say then are the main symptoms? You mentioned sort of distractibility and
Mm.
hyperactivity, etc. But what from your perspective as a coach, what do you find and look, it's a very difficult thing to say. How long's a piece of string? Oh, not everyone's the same, of course. But if you could say there's a sort of general undertone of the sorts of things people come to you with, what are they?
So ADHD are three types: the inattentive, the hyperactivity, and the combined, and that is done through the psychiatrist and a multidisciplinary team. From a coaching perspective, I see executive function challenges, and I'll explain what that is. Nervous system dysregulation and low self-image. Um, First, executive function skills. What these are? These has to do with the executive center of the brain, which is in our prefrontal cortex, has to do with planning, prioritizing, regulating our emotions, remembering things short term, sustaining our attention, starting a task, finishing a task, impulsivity or actually response inhibition, metacognition, which is the new intelligence. Better than intelligence means self reflect about my thinking, my performance. Mm, Time management, stress tolerance. So these are organizational skills, metacognitive skills, emotional regulation skills. These are skills that help us strategize. So these in ADHD and other neurodiversities are underdeveloped. These skills develop later in your 20s. But when you have dysfunction with that, or these are so pronounced, you might have trouble with your daily life. Example, you get fines, you get court orders, you get letters, and life gets very, very, very messy.
So is it sort of like the analogy of how you get two types of toolboxes? You get certain toolboxes, you open them, and everything's neat and it's in their own place. Versus you open a toolbox and there's stuff everywhere and you have to rummage through it. Is it like that in terms of the brain where instead of someone being quite rigid and focused, look, this is my aim, this is my goal. I know I've got to be here at this time. I know I have to be there at that time. For someone with ADHD, is it more of like a scatterbrain? Oh, I need to do this. I need to. Oh, what's that over there? It's like a
Mhm.
dog that's sniffing everything it sees. Would you say that's sort of the same thing?
Yes, dopamine is very appealing, novelty is very appealing, variety is very appealing. It stimulates the nervous system. gets your dopamine active, because dopamine is lower in ADHD generally. Everyone is different, obviously, and there is a spectrum, and the depth of neurodiversity needs to be assessed properly, because you might have also autism or dyslexia or other conditions like comorbidities like depression, anxiety, OCD, whatever it is. So if you want to go towards the medication route, a proper diagnosis is very important to see what's the primary diagnosis, what are we dealing with here. Obviously, some people have not gone down that route and they manage it naturally. But yes, being disorganized, losing your keys, forgetting your phone, having a scattered brain is very, very, very common.
See,
Liking shiny objects.
that's why I don't think I have it. I know I was told by the teacher. I don't think I'm like that. I never lose my phone or my keys or anything like that. And that sort of leads me to the next kind of thought that I'm having at the moment, where with what we're talking about, is there a case that potentially, because there is a spectrum of sort of neurodiversity, is there a case that one can be mistaken for the other? So ADHD with low latent inhibition, for example, or autism or Asperger's. Is there a case that because someone is quote unquote different, they could be put into the wrong sort of gate or wrong hole, if that makes sense?
A lot of my clients come with the wrong diagnosis because they haven't done it with a proper team of good specialists and a thorough investigation in their neurodiversity. And some come, they say, I have dyslexia. But then they realize I have ADHD, OCD, and autism. And, because they were not assessed properly. So that's the first step if you have proper challenges that you need to deal with, but you don't have to hit everything. So some people with ADHD are very organized. It doesn't mean that they don't have it. They might struggle with other aspects of, impulsivity or self-doubt or maybe time awareness, for example.
But could impulsivity be trained? Like the marshmallow delayed gratification sort of experiments where you could learn to manage that impulsivity. Like, for example, I was a lot more impulsive as a youngster than I am now, and therefore there has been sort of changes to how things have played out. And I'm not saying that it's easy, hard, and I'm choosing myself an example rather than being more generic in that sense. But could the people who listening say, well, actually, is that an excuse to say, oh, just because you are like that you then put this ADHD label on, rather than actually you need to develop time management skills, you need to develop self-control, you need to develop diary management, etc., etc., etc. Where's that line drawn between, okay, you need to work on some things, or there is a inherent difference within the prefrontal cortex or brain, or again, is it just coming back to the psychiatrist, go and get a proper diagnosis?
These skills can be developed at any age because of neuroplasticity. The brain is malleable the more we repeat things, and when we're neurodiverse, we need more repetitions to build habits. And when we get off our routine, sometimes it's hard to get back to it. So yes, of course, it can be developed. And it's not an excuse, but the person needs to want to improve some things. You cannot force it to anyone.
I like that. That's good, because yes, it's the attitude, isn't it? You've got to want to lose weight. You have to want to learn something. You have to want to, get a new job or whatever else it may be. But there seems to be a view in the ether that ADHD is a negative always, but there are a lot of successful people, and it tends to be that a lot of entrepreneurs become, are all come from a background of ADHD. Richard Branson is a very famous one, with regards to Virgin Airlines. Is it a case then of saying, well, actually, okay, maybe these things are bad, but there are a lot of positive. Maybe it's a superpower in its own right, and it's knowing how to harness that sort of personality trait, if you like, in order to get the best from it. It's like the whole, don't judge a fish's ability to climb a tree because they are a fish and it is a tree that requires, a climbing animal, squirrel. And maybe that's the case with ADHD, is that this regimented school process or fixed procedure in jobs doesn't align with the ADHD. So someone with ADHD is therefore, the difference is expanded because of the sort of things they're doing. Does that make sense?
Yes. A lot of entrepreneurs have neurodiversity. You mentioned one, and I see it a lot with business owners because they have the big ideas and then they have a team to execute things. But every person is so different because other conditions, trauma, childhood might, coexist. So every person is different. Some people might view their neurodiversity as very bad luck, but I see it as strength. But you need to be in the right environment to leverage these skills. If you're in the wrong job, you might find it very, very hard to cope.
So, what sort of jobs would be suited, or again, is that sort of dependent? Because if we think of spectrums by nature, there will be spectrums within spectrums. So, I'm sure ADHD, there's a wide spectrum of, you know, on the low end, if we can make a low and high end, a low end of ADHD or a high end of ADHD. What sort of roles are suited, and is there a spectrum?
Yeah. So everyone is different again. But usually with ADHD, we see a lot of creative thinking, speed, edge. This is amazing, like out of the box innovation. So these could be examples, but other people might have OCD and ADHD and they might like to do some other jobs. So it really depends on the profile. That's why it's so bespoke. But the job description and your daily tasks need to fit your strengths.
So, what sort of strengths do people with ADHD have? I know you mentioned a few, thinking outside the box, etc. But what about something a bit more specific in terms of, oh, they're very good at, I don't know, reading fast? And I'm not saying that's the case, but is there anything specific, tangible, that you can put your finger on, or maybe use an example from a client without giving any names?
Yes, I mean, everyone is different again because some people might not relate, but speed, creativity, intuition, out of the box thinking, solving problems are very common.
Is it the problems that they've created though through lack of?
They like solving challenges and a lot of times doing it last minute, but that does not apply for everyone. But I see it quite often.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well. With doing a lot of reading. I mean, I like to read generally anyway, but I'm interested in sort of psychology, philosophy, and just these sort of topics. And what you tend to find is people with ADHD are perceived to be, or perceived to have difficulty concentrating on tasks, and they, as you said, their mind wanders. But what I've found is they actually get hyper concentrated with things that they enjoy doing. Is that true?
That's true. That's also true in autism, but it's very general statement. Again, everyone is different, but yes, they can hyper focus for hours, forgetting about time, and then can get exhausted in the end, which can go to a negative after.
So is that just a natural thing that happens? As in, they find something that they are interested in, and then they start to realize, actually, I can focus and concentrate on this incredibly well, and therefore that's maybe something I should pursue. Is that the way it happens, or is it more of a case of I need to force myself to do it, and then they start enjoying it?
Oh, there are strategies for task initiation for sure. You can ritualize the process, the beginning of the process to get into the flow. But if something is interesting and gets you dopamine, you definitely can focus for long. Yeah.
I just want to come back to the self-image, because it's just popped into my mind, and something you said right at the start, low self-image. Can you talk a little bit about that and why that is sort of correlatory maybe to ADHD?
Yeah. Well, years of feeling different, the odd one out, misunderstood at school, being called lazy, especially in the mainstream system that is so obsolete, according to my opinion, in a different way that can be very boring for a neurodivergent brain. Build your identity. You hear it a lot. If there are no accommodations at school, or if you have not done anything about your neurodiversity, you might feel you cannot do anything. You're not good enough as well, based on neurotypical standards. So that doesn't help. And then we have RSD, rejection sensitivity dysphoria. Then you take things personally. You feel very, very hurt by a look, by something simple. And that feeds into that, negative self-talk.
Yeah, self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? Is that
As well.
you have this neurodiverse personality, and then because of that you feel bad, and that probably makes you worse, and then you feel even worse, and then and it's that self-revolving door, isn't it, that you get outside hotels. Sometimes you walk and you can just keep walking around in a circle. So what are some practical tips then for people if they feel they have ADHD? And I know, I'm not saying this is a diagnosis and no one's holding it to you. This is generic sort of advice. If they haven't been to a psychiatrist, they should do, if they feel that they are that way inclined. What are some sort of active steps people can take, do you think, to turn it from a negative to a positive? I know you've sort of gone over a few of them, but if we can say some specifics that, okay, do you know what? Make yourself a timetable and stick to it, or get someone else to make you a timetable, or set reminders on your phone. Like for me, I did used to be forgetful sometimes with little things, not with the big things, just with little things. In terms of someone says, "Oh, can you bring this for me?" I don't know, my trainers that you left at your house or something. I'd forget them, but I'd remember all the big things. So now I just leave notes on my phone or email myself so that I always remember things. Is there anything practical like that people can do in order to help?
There are many practical tips, but we need to work on identity as well, because whatever system I can suggest or tips, if you don't believe you can sustain it long term, or it does not align with who you truly are or are becoming, that would fall. Your system will reject it. So I personally work with 3 levels: identity, nervous system, and executive function. And once we work with all of them together, the strategies can stick. Even if one strategy doesn't work,
Can you just explain those? What were those? They were executive function.
Executive function, we said the strategies of the brain, like the CEO of the brain.
Yeah.
And then the nervous system, which can be dysregulated in neurodiversity.
Yeah.
There can be sensory and emotional dysregulation, because it is based on research, but we see it a lot. Your system can be overstretched or depleted. And when we're feeling like that, we view the world as, a scary place. And then how can we even focus on strategize on something? It's difficult for our executive center to get online.
Yeah.
And then if we believe we are not organized, for example, and that's our self-perception, it's difficult. But if we start building daily successful practices with evidence, and we can slowly change our identity, reset our nervous system, and then we can use executive function systems to be sustainable.
Is there a case, though, that you have to believe before you do as well? So, if you say, it's like the whole Pygmalion effect, is if you tell someone you're very neat and tidy, they become more neat and tidy. So is there a case that we have to tell our brain, do you know what, you are organised? Yeah, you are organised, actually, yeah. Let's show it, and then it does happen, and then that's a self-fulfilling prophecy in the right way, that you are reinforcing a self-image that you want to have.
Well, a lot of people with ADHD, they have a lot of failures in their life. So even if they say that to themselves, they will feel it's not congruent, and your nervous system will pick this up. So it's better to say something like, I'm becoming more and more organized with daily evidence, and then build your successes and change your self-image rather than lie to yourself.
What sort of failures are we talking about? Small or large failures?
Well, it depends on the environment you're put from childhood, parenting, teachers, friends. If your school says to you that you're rubbish at this subject or you cannot focus on that, and you hear that so many repetitions, it takes much, much more effort and repetition and evidence to reset these imposter narratives.
So I know what you're saying. It's a case of you have to be able to do something, and you have to be able to prove to yourself that you can, because otherwise it's just false, isn't it? That's basically the underlying thing that I'm getting over the last few minutes, is that yes, it's all well and good, this self-talk, but it has to be based on the evidence and experience that you've had over your lifetime. Because if you've always had failures, you've always had people telling you how different you are, and teachers telling you this, and parents telling you that, it's going to be very difficult for you to change overnight that, no, actually, I'm this person. And is that sort of where you come in as a coach to help navigate that process?
Because if somebody comes to me and say, I'm so disorganized, they need to start believing that they have the potential to be much, much more organized, and then change their self-image about that with evidence now. Because they come to me because they are frustrated. I lose things. I forget my meetings. I don't have a calendar. I forget my, and that affects relationships
So
and everything.
do you make them more accountable for their actions?
Oh, yeah. Coaching has to do with accountability. Yeah.
So they're accountable to both themselves and you at the same time?
Yes.
And
Some
then you
pressure
can
needs to be
release...
applied.
Yeah, pressure, yeah, of course. But
Yeah.
then on the long term, then is if they're accountable to both of you, there's probably a point in time where you've done your work and you can peel away and have less of a control over the situation, and they're now accountable for themselves because they've learned with your guidance, with your pressure, as you put it, that they can do it themselves.
The space, the coaching space, and the executive function coaching helps with your metacognition as well. You understand what doesn't work for you, what works for you. We tweak them together. It's the relationship. It's not me telling you what to do. It's them, The more work they do before, during, and after the sessions, they build their metacognition. So the more they build that, they know what will work next time and make a better choice.
So how much or what percentage of the population do you think are ADHD? If you said it's underdiagnosed, because coming into this, I was under the assumption that it's overdiagnosed, that someone who was slightly different or unorganised was just lumped into the ADHD sort of bracket, if that makes sense.
I don't know how much of the population has ADHD, but people are more aware. The diagnoses are late, the waiting list is long, and I don't think that's good for the UK at least.
The thing is, do you think it's a sign of the times and the way society is? Because maybe 50 or 100 years ago, ADHD wouldn't even be looked at purely on the basis that because society is so rigid and focused and speedy now in terms of you've got this meeting, then when things were maybe a bit slower, possibly ADHD was seen in a different light, and actually maybe it was just seen as a personality trait.
Definitely now we have so many notifications on our phones, and technology does not help. So yes, having less choices, being more present, more mindful can be better for the nervous system. Now the nervous system has so much information, and if you have ADHD, you might find it difficult to prioritize what to do. So it gets even worse. It's very, very difficult.
So how do you help people prioritize then? If they're having difficulty, and let's say I was to come to you and I said, look, I don't know what to do. I've got all these projects going on, and I'm basically going to miss deadlines unless I start fixing myself up. What were the sort of first few steps that you would take in order to help that person? Or let's say it's my twin brother Navid, which is just my name backwards in this example.
Navid. Well, it depends. Is it realistic, the deadline? Can you push it back? Do you know the steps that you need to take? There are many, many different strategies. But as I said, we work with the identity as well. Because it's a skill that you need to be transferred to the client. It's not me doing it for them, but they might need help with, chunking. What are the steps? What are the obstacles? Do you need to ask somebody for clarification? Do you understand what you need to do? Because that can lead to procrastination. These are many, many executive function skills that play a role. How much time you've got? Is your lifestyle good? Have you slept? Is it a better time to do this task? When do you have more energy? So it's more holistic rather than just specific time management or prioritizing.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I do sort of coaching as well. And as you said, it has to be very bespoke. You have to understand sort of what's going on the inside in order to give an answer. It's like people will say, I've worked in finance and things like that. Oh, what should I invest into? Right. Like, what's your budget? What's your finances look like? What's your income? What's your expenditure? What's your goal? Do you have income or growth in mind? What's the level of risk you want to take? There's no such one thing, one size fits all. The same with coaching.
Exactly.
Oh, can you, people say, oh, how can I make my life better? Well, what do you mean by better, first of all?
Yeah.
Well, and then you have to, because better can be anything. If I give you 10 pence today, your life technically, or richer, let's say you said, I want to become richer, here's 10p, you're richer. but that's not what I meant. So I think what you've said is spot on, is that there has to be specificity of exactly what you want to improve or what needs to change, and the only person who can give you that is the client, and that comes through a discourse in order to sort of prescribe exactly what needs to be done, or how they need to help themselves, if that makes sense. You're there as a reflection, and I like that, because there are far too many people out there who's like, oh, just do this, just do this, just do that, and unfortunately it doesn't really work like that. Even with a business, you can't just go, oh, they would say, oh, I want to improve my business, just say, oh, just do these 3 steps. You don't even know what business it is. Is it selling motorcycles, or is it a service-based business? Is it advertising? Is it gambling company? Whatever. All of those are going to have a slightly different matrix that you would apply over the top in order to give a result, and obviously the end result is similar in terms of improvement. But I think it's good that you said that it is based on a specific person and what it is they're trying to achieve, and their self-image, and all of these variables that will help you to mold that like like a sort of clay pot.
Yeah, of course, I've worked with so many people with ADHD, and there are specific strategies for neurodivergent brains, but we need to talk about what level are we talking about. Are we talking about the CEO? Can he have an assistant? How many employees do you have? Is it about a simpler approach? So it's very, very bespoke.
Yeah, 100%. And these are the qualifying questions. It's like, if you go to buy a car, they don't just say, oh, you should buy this brand new car. They say, oh, do you want a 4-seater or a 2-seater? Do you want an estate, a saloon, or a hatchback? What colour do you want? And you start to narrow things down, because you have to understand what it is that person wants. And I think that's a really important point about coaching in general. There's a difference between a coach and a mentor, and coaching is very different to mentorship, which I think is a really important distinction. So you also look at the other neurodiversity pieces as well, not just ADHD, I understand, or you're aware of?
In most of the cases, there are executive challenges with other neurodiversities, like dyslexia. Again, we see difficulties with executive function, with autism as well. And we see also difficulties with the nervous system. So that applies now more than ever, because the world is so crazy and people are so stressed. Imagine if you're neurodivergent as well.
That's true, yeah. It's a high-paced world, and even for those people organised, it's difficult. Imagine if you scatterbrain and things like that. And yeah, life is going at a crazy pace, especially now when people are having 2 jobs, and they've got 3 kids and 2 cars, and insurance renewals and all of these other things, and they've got fix things around the house, and etc, etc, etc. And something I would suggest to anyone listening is, like, if you do struggle with that sort of thing, try different ways to be. If something's not working for you, and if you can afford to get a coach, fantastic. If something's not working, try different things that will work for you. Some people use calendars, some people use notes, email themselves, whatever. A way that you can try and look. This isn't about just ADHD in general. In order to improve something, you have to try different methods, don't you? And I'm sure you're, even as a coach, you'll try something and you're like, okay, that was okay, but there's probably a slightly better way to do this now, and then you adapt the way that you look at something, because there's nothing you get nothing right first time. I'm sure you agree.
Yeah, and it's about the client to come up with it. And me, of course, I give suggestions, because a lot of people with ADHD, they want directions. But I can suggest some things, but the client needs to understand if that will work for their brain. And that's the purpose of coaching, and just for them to also increase their metacognition, which is in many cases underdeveloped, as an executive function skill. That will help them after we work together to sustain this and know strategies that will work for their brain that they didn't have before. So that's very important.
That is the most important thing with coaching, isn't it? Is getting them to say it, because it's not, you can't just say, oh, you must go and live. What you have to do is move to Scotland, go and climb 17 mountains, send this email. No, you have to, and that's the beauty of it, is that when they say it themselves, it's already self-accountability, isn't it? Or self-realisation that affects self-image, self-esteem, all of these things. So I think that's a really good way that you're doing it, rather than amateur people just try and tell people, oh, go and do this, go and do that. I think that's what coaches should and do is asking questions and trying to direct thoughts in a way to sort of have that breakthrough that allows someone to change. Like the film Inception, if you've seen it, Leonardo DiCaprio.
I think I've seen it many times, many years ago. Yeah.
Plant the seed, and it has to be their own idea.
Sometimes their own idea, sometimes they need suggestions. But what you said about the environment, first of all, the world is changing so fast after COVID. And the environment also dictates performance. So a simple change in environment can help, put people in the right frame of mind for higher performance. So sensory sensitivity, feeling safe, a few things can help a lot.
Environment in what sense? Something small like just a cleaner bedroom, or a change of environment like moving to a different country, or I'm sure there's some bits in the middle as well.
Change job if it's not aligned with your skill set. But joking aside, where you work, where you can focus, can you focus better at your home? Can you focus better at a cafe, at a library, a membership club? Do you need to work around people? Do you need to work alone? Just understanding your sensory profile as well, and your nervous system state, what temperature you want, and what part of the day do you have the most energy, Are you motivated to start with the most difficult task, or your motivation is very low and get something done is better than nothing, It's about readiness for coaching as well, and how ready the person is, and you need to pick up these things.
It's interesting, isn't it? The whole eat the frog by doing the worst task earliest in the morning. For me, it depends on the day, if I'm honest. Like some days I'm like, right, I've got loads of shit. Let's get all this stuff smashed out and then get easy through the day. Other days, it's like, well, I've got so much to do. Let me just get all these done, and then I can just have the afternoon or even to focus on this one. So yeah, and it's for me, it's like, okay, there should be a rule. I should have a rule saying always do the hardest one first. But from experience of my own, and this is what you just said, when can you focus? Where do you focus? Blah blah blah. Some days I just feel that the best way to do it is to save the best to last, if you want to call it best or worst. And sometimes it's just get it out of the way and have an easier day as you go through, rather than the day getting progressively harder.
Yeah. And it's about your capacity. Some days, for example, you are tech poor, money poor, energy poor, resources poor. You need to check in with your energy levels so you know how much bandwidth you have, and then you can set realistic goals. Otherwise, you'll just fail every day. And at the end, what I see a lot is people will get burnout and overwhelmed if they don't respect their own capacity, and their nervous system will get depleted, and then how they can access even, the higher brain.
Is there anything that because we've been talking for about 45 minutes now, is there anything that within ADHD that you've not mentioned that you feel that's really important? Because we've covered quite a little bit of ground, but is there anything that you can think, do you know what? Yeah, do you know what? I think we've missed this key part out, or maybe just to touch on or expand on something that you've already mentioned?
I love people with ADHD. I think they are brilliant. And I believe when they know themselves better and they put themselves in the environment they can thrive, they can really show their brilliant brain, but also the people that they have around them plays a big role.
That's an important one, isn't it? The people you have around you. If you have people around you that are always shooting you down, calling you names, that has an impact on that self-image you mentioned right at the start. Whereas if you've got people, building you up, and whether it's friends, family, coaches, whatever, but there's something, or a different environment. I mean, you mentioned it already. Environment's not just geography, different job, etc. It can also, environment can be the circle of people around you, and I think that's
thoughts you have as well.
Thoughts you have, all of that is environment, isn't it? Absolutely. And that can be impacted by the people, and just your own thoughts, and being alone can affect, solitude can affect the books that you read. All of that is environment. And I think that's awesome. Just keep doing what you're doing.
There are a few more things I forgot. One is a lot of people with ADHD, they mask their symptoms. They don't want to reveal they have ADHD. They have a diagnosis at work, and they overcompensate. They work harder without asking for what they need. So it might be a case of assertiveness, or, being at the wrong job, the culture, if the job is inclusive. So that's some things that we also work on to be more authentic and more true to yourself. That's important.
So what you're saying is there's an overcompensation there, and that's human nature, isn't it? You overcompensate for something. If you're short, you might get a really flash car or something, or whatever. You might do a wacky hairstyle or tattoos and stuff. And sometimes it is an overcompensation. And I like that you say that. Sometimes we have to reflect on ourselves and say, do you know what? What am I doing that I'm trying to show off or compensate for something? Am I trying to sound smarter than I am, or trying to do this or that? And I think that's a real good point, is that self-reflection as to what you're really like from the outside looking in.
And sometimes masking can be, I don't ask for what I need. I do it in the way that does not serve my brain. So basically, I betray myself. I overextend myself. I work in ways that do not support me. And then I get fatigue, overwhelmed, and I'm like, my energy is depleted. I cannot access my executive function, my identity, and my self-image doesn't help as well with this. And people pleasing a lot. I wanna prove that I can do something like everyone else. I see that a lot. And if you own it, if you own your neurodiversity, and choose environments and jobs that fit your brain or businesses, that's the best gift you can give yourself. Because if your environment is wrong, if your job description is wrong, then you'll always feel, that you need to mask, people please, if you don't want to say.
This is it, and I think that's it. You're the only person like you in the world. You're the only unique. You're like a snowflake. There's no one like you, and I think people tend to want to be other people and want what they have. Look, you are who you are. You can only look to improve and channel what you are, and I think that's a real important point. Don't wish to be someone else. Wish to be the best version of yourself.
Yeah, and self-acceptance, self-compassion, and owning your strengths. Owning these are the center of your performance, not you don't need to mask this, and just leverage this. I think makes a big difference for self-image.
Absolutely fantastic. So, if people want to reach out to you, they feel they might have ADHD, or they have definitely got it through a diagnosis of some kind, how can they reach out to you?
Reach out to me at annadafna.com. And I want to finish with an inspirational quote. I believe the more you overcome adversity, the more you get to be yourself. So thank you.
Love it. And thanks very much. We'll put all of your information in the show notes and stuff. But yeah, thanks for being on the show. Fantastic.